All right. The Pope died. Now, I am not a Catholic, and so I don't feel qualified at all to discuss any of this. I know that he was thought of and certainly appeared to be a bit of a left-winger. I don't know where we go from here, where Catholics go from here. I don't know what happens here, but Liz Wheeler joins me to talk about that. Joining me now, Liz Wheeler, host of the Liz Wheeler Show. Liz, I am not Catholic. You are Catholic. The Pope died. The floor is yours.
It is. First, I'd just like to start by saying that I hope that others will join me in what I'm doing today, which is praying for the Pope's soul. Before we talk about politics and religion and the impact of the church and all of that, I disagreed with the Pope on a lot, but I am spending today praying for the repose of his soul, and I hope, regardless of whether you're Catholic or Protestant or evangelical or anything else, I hope that you'll join me in that.
All right. Well, there you go. So where does the Catholic Church go from here?
So the process, are you talking about the process for selecting a new pope and who might be the next
exactly
pope
right.
and all of that?
You know?
Well, it's actually an interesting process. So what happens is officials of the Catholic Church called cardinals, who can be archbishops or just other church officials, they're the guys that wear red, the cardinals, they convene at the Vatican. That'll happen within the next couple weeks. I think the average amount of time between the death of a pope and what's called a papal conclave, which is when all the cardinals meet to elect a pope. I think that takes a couple of weeks, usually about 2 weeks before that happens. They'll all meet at the Vatican and they will go to Mass together at St. Peter's Basilica. They will pray that the Holy Spirit guides them into electing the next pope. They will then take an oath of absolute secrecy, which is where a lot of the myths and legends about this come from. And they will then march from St. Peter's Basilica to the Sistine Chapel. Once inside the Sistine Chapel, they will start casting secret ballots. They write down who they want to vote for the next pope. They fold their paper in a certain way. They march one by one up to the front of the Sistine Chapel. They drop their twice folded ballot in a chalice. It's then counted aloud. In order to be elected pope, a cardinal has to receive 2/3 of the vote. So it's not just a plurality, it's 2/3 of the vote, which means there's often multiple rounds of voting before a pope is elected. Now, a lot of us, whether you're Catholic or not, are familiar with the black smoke coming out of the papal conclave. That means a vote has happened, but the result has not been that a pope has been elected, at which time they burn the ballots with a chemical that causes black smoke. When a candidate has received 2/3 of the vote, they burn the ballots with a chemical that causes white smoke. That means a pope has been elected. And then the pope is announced with the new papal name and with the garments of the pope and blesses the world. In short.
Okay. Do we? I don't understand how this works. As far look, we don't have exit polls here, right? As you just mentioned, the secrecy of it. I did hear Catholics complain about how left-wing this pope seemed to be. Is that the direction the International Catholic Church is going? Do we get the sense that they're going to lurch back the other direction? I don't know how this works.
Well, right. And I think that your question and even confusion is felt not just by non-Catholics, it's felt by a lot of the Catholic faithful. Because Pope Francis, in my opinion, the hallmark of his papacy is confusion. His actions often didn't match his words. He would give conflicting comments or comments that conflicted with his policies, and it left a lot of the faithful confused about issues where we really need moral clarity. I find that to be very destructive to the faith. As I said, that's my analysis of Pope Francis's papacy here. So the College of Cardinals, popes select cardinals, and Pope Francis, I believe, has selected over 80 of the 137 eligible cardinals to cast their ballots. So you would think, okay, well, maybe he packed the College of Cardinals with people who have a more left-leaning theology and ideology that he does. We don't really know because the process is secret. He's also not allowed, Pope Francis has not allowed these cardinals around the world to gather in large groups over the course of the year. So they don't have good working relationships. So they haven't formed their cliques and clubs and chosen favorites. So your guess is as good as mine. I can tell you who I would like to be the next pope. I would like to see Cardinal Robert Sarah, the next pope. I would like a more traditional theology to reign supreme in the Catholic Church. I do think that there's a misconception, and this is among Catholics and non-Catholics, about the role of the Pope. just because Pope Francis embraced an ideology that informed his theology that's in my opinion, counter to a lot of the doctrine of the church, doesn't mean that he changed the doctrine of the church. Catholics are not obligated to adhere to or believe the pastoral teachings of a pope, as strange as that may seem to Protestants or evangelicals. A pope does not speak infallibly every time he opens his mouth. A pope speaks infallibly very, very infrequently. It's only happened twice since the Second Vatican Council. And so just because a pope is left-wing doesn't mean the doctrine of the church changes. It's kind of, the comparison that I use often is that when Obama was president of the United States, it didn't change our Constitution. It didn't change our Declaration and our founding documents. He just misinterpreted them and then applied his misinterpretations to policy. That's somewhat how it is in the Catholic Church as well. Doctrine cannot be changed by a pope. He can simply misinterpret it or confuse the faithful. So I think a lot of us are hoping and praying that a more traditionally conservative in his theology candidate will be elected as the next pope.
All right. There you go. Told you we were going to have a Catholic say. Let's switch gears and go to something else near and dear to your heart. RFK Jr. was out there talking. Here's what he said.
Autism destroys families. More importantly, it destroys our greatest resource, which are our children. Within 3 weeks, and probably we're hoping in 2 weeks, we're going to announce a series of new studies to identify precisely what the environmental toxins are that are causing it. This has not been done before. And we're going to do it in a thorough and comprehensive way, and we're going to get back to with an answer to the American people very, very quickly.
Liz, talk to me about autism. What causes it? What do you believe? What's RFK doing? The floor is most definitely yours. This ain't my area.
You know, what I want to see and what I hope to see from RFK, and I think that this is what he's announcing, is I most want to see a study that compares the health outcomes of what the CDC would define as fully vaccinated children compared to children that the CDC would consider to be partially vaccinated, compared to children who the CDC would consider to be unvaccinated. I want to see the health outcomes of these children, and that could be done very quickly. When RFK announced that we would have the answer to what is causing this epidemic of autism by September, there were a lot of people that scoffed and said, how could you possibly know the time that it would take you to answer such a large question? And my answer to that is, well, you don't have to conduct long-term observational studies. You can take the outcomes of people who already fall into these categories to compare, correlation and causation, and just to inform the American people of the impact of some of these toxins. It's not just vaccines. I mean, he's talking about environmental toxins like fluoride in the water and hormones in meat and what's in our air, and the chemicals and dyes in our food, and all different kinds of things that clearly, antibiotic use, all different kinds of things that have clearly impacted the health status of the American people compared to prior generations. So I find this to be very exciting. I was a little, to be honest, disturbed 2 weeks ago when RFK posted on X and praised the MMR vaccine. He had said, he'd traveled down to Texas for the so-called measles outbreak, and he had said he's helping Texas get stocked with much needed MMR vaccines. And he said the best way to prevent the spread of measles is this vaccine. And I thought to myself, who is this typing this post? Because the RFK that I know and love wrote a book about the risks of the MMR vaccine, and he's now contradicting himself. But the man that I saw in the press conference that you showed, Jesse, that's the RFK that we know and love, who is not bringing a preconceived notion to the podium. He is bringing science and studies and data and evidence to inform you as a parent about the risks, the harms, and the benefits of these medical interventions that currently are required on our children. And I'm so grateful and excited to see that.
Well, that's what you call a ringing endorsement. Liz, thank you so much. I appreciate you. I would thank you for coming to my YouTube channel, but I know how brilliant it is, and I know you love it here. So subscribe and watch. We're going to start really ramping things up and putting some funny stuff, some interesting stuff out there, some collaborations. Either way, my YouTube channel is officially the place to be. So stick around.